Mark 2.0, bringing on great guests. And today, my co-host Gordon and I, we have, producer, director, playwright, writer, realtor. He says it all. Vince Grittani, the weekend guy.
Yeah, that's me.
Welcome to the podcast, Vince. I want to start out by talking about your upbringing and what got you to where you are today.
My upbringing. Well, probably like a million people that are in this business. It started at camp, and actually before summer camp, I can claim that I probably was the first person to produce Catherine O'Hara. From Schitt's Creek and Second City and all those things. She and I grew up together from grades 0 to, I can think about grade 5. And we used to do things in my garage and put shows on. And then from there, I ended up going to, like I said, summer camp. And then I became a counselor at camp. And then I ran the programs of the arts things, and meanwhile I went to St. Michael's Choir School in downtown Toronto, which was all music. And not that I was a great singer, but it was fun, and it put me on stage professionally and got me in a large choir, and it gave me that sort of bug. And from then I think it was I went off to university. I wanted to go, no, I went to another high school, and then I got into plays. And then from there, I went to university. I was going to study theater, and I got into there and realized I don't want to be an actor. I didn't think I want to be an actor, but what I did realize is everybody around me thought I had great ideas, and no one told me what I was a producer. So I had to learn that, because back in the 70s here in Canada, there was very little that sort of as far as instruction and in educational, because the industry was itself, television had been around, but film was still pretty basic. And of course, theater was pretty strong, but I wasn't really a theater person at that point. So
if I may, Vince, if I may, you went to Windsor, correct?
That's right, University of Windsor, yeah.
You were a Lancer, and I have
for a couple of years.
I have a friend who went to their musical theater school.
Oh.
They have a very strong theater program, do they not?
Oh, yeah. No, it developed. When I went there, it was still very young, and it didn't have anything. Actually, I moved from the regular program into the fine arts. I stayed there for a week and a half, and I remember lying there in one of those feely get in touch with yourself classes. And just like in the musical, there's a song called feel the motion, feel it. And I dug right down to the bottom of my heart, and I felt nothing. That's exactly what it was. So I quit, and I moved so after the second year, I moved to McMaster and took up social work or sociology, stayed there for a couple of years. Then I went to India and taught school. But I tell you what, all this gave me was world experience. So, I've managed to do a lot of traveling, and I got to tell you, and I'll just jump ahead here. I'm competing as a writer against 30-year-old writers and 20-year-old writers who have no life experience, and it pisses me off in this industry that that's the bulk of it, and it's hard to get people to look at you when you're older, but it's slowly happening.
Oh, very good. Want to point out to everyone watching, that's not Vince's background.
There's my beach house.
Yeah, exactly. He moved up from his cottage.
Well, the truth is, I actually do live on the ocean now in Nova Scotia.
Palm trees.
No palm trees as of yet, but I got to tell you, since everybody keeps saying to me, "Oh, you're moving out to the Maritimes," the winters are terrible. These are way better winters than they were back in Muskoka, back in the middle of Ontario. I think I shoveled once and it disappears fast where I am on this small island in the south of Cape Breton. So yeah,
Now, how
great.
did you grew up in Toronto, you're going to St. Mike's, you're going to Windsor, you're going to Mac, and then you found your way up to the Muskoka region.
Well, that goes from, first of all, I got into advertising, and that's where I started writing and realized I could write. And then I loved advertising, but I didn't like my agency. So I started writing at a department store, and then I moved into an agency. And then from there, I started writing. I wrote my first play called Betwixt and Between, and it was sort of, I look at it now and I go, God, it was idealistic, but I was very fortunate. A couple of years later, I wrote because of advertising and being related to, I had another career for a short while. I did some modeling, and I got into that in the early 80s. And what that was what was great about that was I managed to travel with that, because in those days you could walk in. The look was Italian brooding, right? Just sit there, clench you didn't have to. And I did it for about 4 or 5 years until it started switching. And then suddenly all the models are starting to work out. You had to have the bodies and all this stuff. And I said, now it's becoming work. I'm out of here. And but at the end of all that, in about 1985, I wrote a musical called Yuppies, the musical.
Yes.
And it did very well. It played for a year in Toronto, and then that sort of became my calling card. And from there, I went to I did another one after that called Quiche My What, which was the answer to Yuppies. And then from there, I moved to LA and decided I was just going to take the plunge. So I moved to LA and worked under the table and for a friend of mine. And I actually did some catering, right? So I just shut up, and she just said, don't speak to anybody, just do it. I was actually on commercial shoots, and I was her helper. And I guess the one thing that I do remember is I got to do one day, one of my gigs was frying up pepperonis for a Domino's commercial, and that were placed on pizzas for camera shots. But this was the best thing about this is this was all done in the Desert Loose studio, where I Love Lucy was shot. So yes. That was kind of fun.
I'm old enough to remember Desilu Productions.
That's it. Well, did do Star Trek.
Not many of us.
The original Star Trek.
And how did you get up to, because you really got yourself a footprint in the Muskoka region in Great.
Well, what happened is I left, yes, exactly. I left LA because nothing was happening. Plus, somebody was going to report me. So I got the heck out of town, Dodge, came back home. But because I was in LA, people in Ontario and back in Canada said, oh, you've been in LA. So no one asked what I was doing there. All I was doing is pitching scripts. And I came back here and I got my first job writing for, I can't remember the first job, but for a company called Nelvana, who did a lot of the animation. And I ended up writing for shows like Beetlejuice and Care Bears, and I knew nothing what I was doing. I had to make it up as I went along. But
you did an episode of Never Ending Story too, the cartoon.
Oh yeah, Never Ending Story, and oh God, there was a bunch of them there, and I just learned it really fast, and I was good at it. And from there, that's when a friend of mine told me about somebody was hiring for this new show called Cottage Life Television. Right. And it was a lifestyle show. It was before all these lifestyle lifestyle channels came out. It was very new. And I went and interviewed and got the job. And I was there as a producer. And I basically did everything at that point, because I had to write the scripts, and there was a host, and I was never hired to be on screen. But what happened was I took a cameraman up to my cottage up in Muskoka, and it started to rain and we couldn't shoot our stories or anything. So I said, here, grab the camera. And I started doing things about me around my cottage, and just talking, doing these free fall things. And I created a segment called Scenes from My Dock, and it became very popular. It was a humorous look at the cottage. And I did that for about 5 years after that. And that's what sort of helped me get into the next step. And then that was in the 90s. And then, I got, what else happened? And then, I sold my first screenplay. That's when things happened.
The Grass Window.
Widow, not window. Widow.
Yeah. Has that screenplay, has it ever been made into a movie?
No, okay. Not yet. But right. It's the screenplay that someone put me with a script doctor, and then I learned how to write a screenplay that way. Other people paid for my education. It was great. And from there, we actually had Lauren Bacall. She wanted to play the lead character in that. And then unfortunately, the '88 recession hit, and life went in the film industry, dunk a little then. And but what I did do is about in the year 2000, 2001, I brought the character back to life on stage and created a show which was called Scenes from My Dock, which was based on my cottage humor. And that's where people knew me from. So I sort of merged them together, and I created the lead character in Grass Widow was Bunny. And Bunny is this old feisty woman from Philadelphia who sits at the end of her dock with a martini in one hand and smoking a cigarette and an air container for an oxygen container that she takes a puff of. And so she was the narrator. She became so popular, I turned it into a one-woman show called Quiet, I'm Talking, and that has done very well for me. And from there, Quiet, I'm Talking, I turned it back into, I rewrote Grass Widow, and I think it's had 72 versions, not drafts, versions. And eventually it evolved into what I now have, what is it? I can't even remember now. My Father's Secret Muse, that's it. Okay. And I'm just literally talking to a producer about it right now who got it and said yes. And so, but I've had a couple of other actresses along the line. They need a little track because probably an A name because they love the character. The character is and the person playing her plays her from the age of 50 to 99. So it's and it's not a one person
role.
Yeah, so it's a meaty role. So that's my life in a nutshell.
You would know a lot about this. I know a little. I've traveled in theater circles myself, and I do have friends who have dabbled, but you will know much more. It's my understanding when you write a book or you write a play, quite often these works, even when they're obscure, they quite often get optioned. They get the movie rights are purchased,
right?
And it can be quite hard to get something from just the rights being taken out. There's a lot of campaigning that almost has to go on. Is there not, or is there?
Well, here's the thing. The industry has changed completely. There's a whole industry out there based on building people's hope, and it's listing on websites. It's joining competitions, and At first, it was a bit of a joke, and it's become a little bit more acceptable now. I know my agent thinks it's a joke still, but I have got attention from people, and I have clicked. Like actually, the producer I'm working with now has sort of came to me via the internet. I mean, I met Mark via the internet. That's how every life is. But that's been over the last 20 years. So that thing about schlepping around and, you know, your script being thrown into a pile and somebody have to read them. Now it's they click through log lines, which is basically a elevator pitch of your project. And if you don't write a good one, you're out. So, but I always tell people there's always a buyer for everything. You just got to hit the right buyer. It's a marriage of both. So,
yeah, because it sounds like what you're describing is very much like the vanity publishing industry, where, you know, there are all these awards and all these agencies and stuff, but it's always for fee. Get, you know, if you want to get your work, your play, your book, whatever the case may be, you know, you have to, it's an industry unto itself.
If you have an agent and you know that if an agent says you got to pay, they're making money. It's their job. It's like I also, as you mentioned, I sell real estate. It's like somebody saying to me, going to somebody and pay me upfront to sell your house. You know, it's the same thing. They make their money off your scripts, and they should be out there pounding the pavement. But it's not pounding the pavement. It's all about connections and who connects to who and everything else. So I also ran a theater company for 20 years.
In
Gravenhurst up in Muskoka, and moved around. And it was to my advantage because I literally, and partners that I worked with I would write the scripts and always pull in the professionals. And what fed the company at the beginning, before I learned how to write grants, was selling real estate. I would sell, make my money, and then throw it into a production. And we got to a point where people would come to these shows in the summer up there. And Muskoka is fairly sophisticated audiences in the summer. It's kind of like Canada's Hamptons. And we had the movie stars, and they're all up there too. But my shows in the summer would be playing in small halls, and I bought all my own equipment and everything. And it was all quite fun. And what it helped me do is basically a workshop and throw stuff up, and people would come and pay money. And it became this, we started our own little industry. And then most of our shows got bought and sold and produced elsewhere. So it was actually a very good little way of doing things. And I was at the right place at the right time. So
now, how is it that the Weekend Guy got bought by Ion Life? That's where I first discovered you.
Yeah, well, that was back in 2003, 4, 5. Yeah, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I think it went. What it was when Cottage Life, after doing it for about 4 or 5 years. Then by this time, we had been doing it for 5 years back then. When I left Cottage Life, the specialty channels started coming out. And they got bought up by one of the specialty channels, but they wouldn't pay me anymore. And like I was doing so much work, and I said, fine. So I ended up becoming a guest on a show that was being produced, for a daily show. And I was every weekend on the Friday, I would show up, and it would be more than Cottage Life. I do gardening, I do anything. What I would do is I became an expert in absolutely anything I could read about. And all I had to do was 3 or 4 minutes. And to me, it was theater. So I would sit there and show people, whatever I read the night before. I even did things about repairing, doing a tune-up in your car. And my dad, who was a mechanic, just said, how the hell did you know that? And I just... I told him I went online and I read a book and I figured it out. And it's, and that's the name of the game. It's not what you're telling, it's how you present it that sells, right? So that I was on one day, and the host of the show, there was two of them, a guy and a girl, and he turned to me and said, well, Vince is here again, and he's our every Friday he's on. He's kind of like our weekend guy. And I went, oh, I like that. So I just said, I'm weekend. And I went home and I registered the name, and I got the website and everything else. So, and from there, I just, I would do that for about a couple of years. And then I was a guest on other shows. And then it took a long time. I put together concepts, and no one would buy it. And finally, one of the networks finally gave me the chance, and that's where things started off. And of course, they wanted it to air it like next month. So I hustled and we got it together, but I had it down to such a formula that I can knock these shows off. And I just called up all my guests, and the rest was history. So.
Now, is there any way that we're going to be able to get it on a streaming platform where we can watch all the episodes?
It's too old. It's on YouTube. I've got stuff on YouTube that I threw up, old stuff. Yeah. But remember, it was before HD, so it's like the quality sucks. And but it's still there. I still get people. You know, it's amazing because when it went on to, it got sold to the global network here. And then Iron Life bought it down in the States, and it played it for a long time. And I'd get these people from all over the country, you know, contacting me like yourself. And it was fun. It was fun. And but then it died, and and I think, and yet again, another recession. I seem to wave with the recessions, and then everybody cut back. And so then, now it's just a matter of I hung in there with my theater company, and as I told you, I finally learned how to write government grants. So I got, why am I putting my money into this? And real estate, I got my license years ago, but 20 years ago, and hardly did anything with it. But I would work with friends and friends of friends, and I think it was costing me to do it. And people would ask me, why are you doing real estate if you're, you know, and I said, well, listen, Hollywood, when it first started, you know, the studios made their money by selling off the valley. That's how they bought, these guys came in and bought all the land in the valley and everything. And to build their studios, they would sell off chunks of the valley and you know, invest. And that's how they built. And that's, I always say Hollywood was built. And they're very similar industries in the sense that, you know, you can break, like real estate in general, it's all about pitching and taking a gamble, and there's a lot of familiar points.
Well, I would imagine that in Gravenhurst, in Halliburton, not Halliburton, Huntsville, that's the word I meant. You know, in the towns and around, you must have been something of a local celebrity. I would imagine.
My brother has a cottage there now, and he says he goes in to buy new fireplaces. The guy knew who you were, and I said, yeah, everybody knew who I was, but it was funny. Yeah, it did work out like that. And I mean, I probably if I had I could have probably built my real estate industry up more there, but I got into the theater and I really enjoyed doing that up until I think 2018. But then I did for 5 years, I ran a film festival up there, and we did well with that too. And so I broke into all these things. It was so busy. And for the most part, I was working by myself for most of the year till everybody came up in the summer. So that was fun. And up to, I think 2018.
So you made a big move. You go from a place where you're well known, well established. You have your theater company. You've got a film festival, and then was it 2020 when you moved to Cape Breton? COVID hit. My life, like a lot of people, especially in the arts, it just went clunk, and I thought, okay, this isn't going to work. So, real estate
for some reason, just went ridiculously high all over. And I owned my house in a little village, and I could never sell it. Had been trying to sell it, and someone came along and said in 2000, and I guess it was, when did COVID hit?
2020.
2020, yeah.
March 2020. So what happened when that hit, my mom came up to live with her. She was in a home and no one knew what was going to happen. So I brought her out of the home and she came to live with me for a while until they got things under control back in the city. So, and she went back. And just after that, I was just, thinking, okay, then real estate started climbing, and somebody came, it wasn't much. And I just put it on the market and someone bought it. And I went, okay. And I thought, okay, well, I'll pay off debts, because it also hit me. It left me with a couple of bills over the coast just stopping. And I went online and just thought, well, I looked in Ontario and I thought, oh, I'm going to be back in the same position. I looked online in Nova Scotia and I read that a lot of people were beginning to move out there because it's very affordable, it is. Yeah. So I found this cute little cedar shaped cottage on the ocean, not too expensive. And I put in an offer and I got it, and I sold everything off and piled up. But because of the internet, my life hasn't stopped. It's just transferred because everything's online anyways. And when I got here, the broker I was working with knew I had a license. She said, "What are you doing with it?" I said, "I'm going to just let it go. I don't want to do it." She goes, "Well, I'll give you 2 or 3 listings to work with, or sales a year." I have been working nonstop in real estate. And of course, as soon as this happens, suddenly I'm talking to all these, my scripts are getting a lot of attention, and I got deals going left and right. And my old plays are getting produced again. So it's become, everything's full force.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Busy is good.
Yeah, no, and I love it. I love it. Oh, is that a border?
Yes.
No. I've got a Nova Scotia duck taller down here. My cousin's staying with me, and she brought hers up. And they're like these guys. They've got to work all the time. They're in everybody's. How old is he or she?
She's 2.
Oh, she's, same age. Lots of energy, eh?
Well, too much energy. I had a border collie when I was 8, 9 years old. When we got her, and I always remembered Max, this dog from when I was a kid, is the best dog I ever had.
Oh yeah.
So 2 years ago, back in January, we were looking for a dog, and I said, "Boy, I'd love another border collie. They're amazing." I forgot it. I had a lot more energy when I was, 8, 9.
Well, you look at them and they're thinking, what are you going to do next? What are you going to do next? What do we do? People will know from television, from my TV years on both Cottage Life and The Weekend Guy. I've had bearded collies, and it's funny because they look at my dog now, Yago, and they think it's Pistol from '91, and they think it's the same dog, and they say, "Is that Pistol?" And yeah, he's 30 years old. I don't think so. So, but it feels like it's the same dog.
Well,
Vince, as someone who was, into musicals and such, what were some of your favorite musical artists growing up?
Oh, probably Sondheim. So, I mean, Sondheim and the regulars, like, I liked all the musicals from the 70s, like Company, and 70s and the 80s Company, and
Chorus Line.
I was actually never a big Chorus Line, but I liked Sweeney Todd and all these.
Oklahoma.
Oh no, that was too
old.
traditional. That's from old. I like the ones that were. I'm trying to remember. Like suddenly my
Grease.
Grease is okay, but not. No, I like the ones that had a little bit of a twist to them. Assassins, things like that. Yeah.
Go see Blood Brothers?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. So the ones that twist, like, I mean, when I watched Sweeney Todd the first time and I saw it with Angela Lansbury, I went, holy crap. And what a weird, who could make a musical out of that? And I mean, all those things influenced me, but I always went back to write what you know. So I did. And that's why my musicals and plays have always been, well, something I know about. I'm actually thinking of a screenplay right now about a guy who moves from Ontario during the, I don't want to beat during COVID, but moves because of the wave of real estate. And I don't know what it is, because if you heard the stories I know for the characters that are literally down, like I've got this guy down the road, I won't mention his name, but he owned a place down there, and here's Earl, Larry Tindon. He came from the, he worked his whole life down here. Yeah, and I just thought he was this innocent guy, and he comes up to me and says, I want to sell my house. So I look at him up online, and his name comes up, and it turns out he was part of a big, huge drug deal and got busted for a big cocaine bust that had all these guys, and he's out of jail, and the rest of them are all in jail. And so I'm asking, and I asked the RCMP guy around the corner, why isn't he in jail? He said, what do you think? And I looked at him, and he snitched, and he didn't say anything, but probably the reason. But anyways, he's quite the character, as many of them around, and I thought there's a germ of a new screenplay here somewhere. Or a one-man show, I don't know. Who knows?
Cape Breton Island, I've been there 3 times. It is absolutely incredible. The Cabot Trail. You're at the south end.
I'm at the south end, but I'm very lucky because I've been selling real estate all over the province. And I decided that because I wanted to learn this province as much as possible. And it's so easy because it's the size of, because maybe from Montreal to Windsor, maybe not quite that long, and maybe up to Nova Scotia or up to Lake
Trail.
Yeah, no, I'm thinking in width. It's not that wide, so but it's great. There's only 1 million people here, and I'm trying to do. Sorry.
I was just saying, I tend to think of Cape Breton Island though as being a separate province, even though it's not. It's part of Nova Scotia.
No. There's quite a bit of different culture around the island because, I mean, this was inhabited, first of all, obviously the original people being the Mi'kmaq, the indigenous people that were here. And then of course the Scots and the French. And where I am, it's called Ile Madame, and you drive onto it, but it was one of the original French colonies here, even in North America, and it's filled with the L'acadian, and it's had its problems over the years. Good old American John Paul Jones raided the place and kicked everybody out, and then they eventually came back, and it's had a mix mash of
well, I'm a history buff, so going to Cape Breton Island is a must, because people don't know this, but Louisbourg was the 3rd largest port in the 16th century, in the 1700s. After Boston and New Orleans, the next biggest port in North America was Louisbourg. Until the British came along in 1755.
And always the history. This used to be where I am. It's part of the whole spice run down to the Caribbean. And I was told literally out in my bay here, because these houses are very old, and they're all made by these hand-cut timbers, and they were built by boat builders. It was, and out in here, there would be ships just anchored out in the front, and it's just amazing. And I sort of visualized that, and I thought maybe it's a time travel script. I don't know, who knows, but it's lovely. I mean, it's like anything, it was all new to me, so I'm still fascinated. And Nova Scotia has I actually did a bit last back in front of the camera. And my old agent said, "Do you want to work?" And I said, "No." And she goes, "Well, I've put your name in." And so I started doing auditions. And again, I didn't have to go anywhere because all the auditions are online, right? My very first one, and I've never done one like this, so I was a little uncomfortable, and it was for the series Sinner, which I would have loved to have been in, but I blew it because I just couldn't feel natural about projecting myself to a character on the other or to someone standing there. So that one I blew, but I ended up getting another part in a series here. I did that role, but it has a very growing, not like Ontario, and not like Toronto, film business. And they often shoot this for Maine and New Hampshire and any other story that can, it can double as. So I got myself connected with them, and this is one of the people that I'm dealing with is how I'm trying to bring at least a project here. So we'll see, because it's so beautiful. It's just amazing scenery here.
Now, was the role that you were talking about your role in Diggstown, or?
Yeah. Does that play in the States?
It's on streaming, like BET Plus is where they have it on.
Yeah. I don't know what I've never seen it. So I don't know. I've never watched it wasn't my cup of tea as far as the type of law. I don't know. It's a great show, but I don't watch TV that much. I stream, but I don't.
No, that's the three of us actually. The three of us don't watch much TV, and I used to work on a ton of TV shows. I did audience work and stuff. I actually worked at that studio that I Love Lucy was filmed at, doing audience work for Comedy Central once.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But I was all over at the studios, and you hit it right on the nose, how they just bought up the valley.
Yeah.
Literally, so.
And now, sorry. Can you go on?
No, go right ahead.
I was just going to say the industry is no longer LA centric, right? It's all over the world now. And it's now with, you look at Netflix, what they're offering, it's stuff that's dubbed, that was made in whatever, and made all over the world and being dubbed. And it's a couple of years ago at the Toronto Film Festival, here I was chatting with the committee from Ukraine, and they were trying to get projects, and I was talking with a partner there, and we had been talking about taking something to the Ukraine and what could we shoot there, because they were offering great deals. Of course, that no longer is going to happen for a while, and I just, I lost touch with those people, but still, my heart goes out, and we'll see.
I wanted to ask you a question though, just, if you were talking to someone a younger person, when you were coming of age, when you were getting into the industry, it was the 1970s, early 1980s, completely different world.
Mm-hmm.
And now everyone is self-producing. You've got TikTok, you've got YouTube, you have all these platforms. If you were coming of age now, if you were, late teens, early 20s in today's world, what would do you think you'd be going all TikTok, YouTube, self-producing, or how do you think you'd be?
Probably, yeah. No, I think there's a lot of different platforms and different ways of getting in and doing stuff. There's a lot of crap out there. But I think you can get someone's attention, and you've got, I think that what is here today are that you can build yourself right into the industry and build steps that take you to the next level, as opposed to, it used to be there was only one level, it was up there and that's it. But you can start your own thing, and then that can get picked up into a podcast. The podcast can get picked up into a series. I mean, there's various ways. So I, you know, you'd just do it. You would just do it. I mean, I was doing plays in my garage with Catherine O'Hara. So, I mean, here I am. Today, you don't have to do that. Well, if I had a videotape, I would have been taping it, or videotape. If I had
when you mentioned that, it made me think of the old Little Rascals TV shows films that they used to show. Hey gang, let's put on a show.
That's exactly it. Oh, I'm from that whole Judy and Mickey era, you know, that the belief in it.
Judy Garland,
you just do it. And in 90% of what I've done, you have to be the force behind anything you do. You do, and you can't just sort of give it over. First of all, you have to really be honest with yourself, because if you're, you know, I know people that cannot write or cannot act and are still, and you just want to shake them up. But as I discovered, maybe it's not acting, but it's part of you'll find a niche in the industry. And I found I like and prefer being the creator and behind the project. I am, you know, I thought, oh, do I want to direct? I thought, no. And I've learned to hand stuff over to directors and let them, whether it's theater or whatever, and feel confident in it. And things get changed, and nothing is done on your own. It's always a group industry. I mean, you know, when people get credit, whether it's a director or a writer, you know, yeah, but he or she wasn't the only person. There was a whole team behind them. And so, I mean, it's just, even with actors today, you know, they have these careers that are manufactured and cultured. They on their own, they could never do it. So, I mean, it's all teamwork.
If I can tell you a funny story, I've been in about 15 plays myself, and they were looking for an actor to play in, you probably know the work, Norm Foster's The Last Resort.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And so I was asked to audition, and I went and auditioned, and I cannot sing. But at the time I thought I could. And I went and I sang a Barry Manilow Mandy, for the guy playing the piano. And it was hilarious because he was so much at pains because he was afraid. We've all seen American Idol, and that when you get an audition, the person can't sing to save their life, and then they try to tell them that I'm a good singer. My mother told me. And this guy was sitting there, and I said, look, if I stink, just say it. It's okay. I can take it. And he goes, well, it wasn't good. And I went, okay. And he was so relieved.
Well, I've auditioned enough people and I have directed, and I've auditioned for not just my own stuff, but other stuff, other playwrights. And you sit back and people come in, and, you know, here's a story. We auditioned, I wasn't directing, but I wrote the show, and we auditioned this one guy who came in, and he had a beautiful voice. At least he could really sing this one song, you know, and he looked the role and he read it well and everything. And it was a musical, right? So we get up, bring him up north, and we quickly realized he had one party song, and that's the only one. He could sing that song, but he couldn't sing anything else. And he had no sense of rhythm. And and I've done that twice where I've miscalculated on hiring people, and I had to get rid of them. It's kind of embarrassing, but I mean, that to me is one of the keys. There's two people who are underrated in this industry, whether it's film or TV, or live theater. It's the editor and the casting director. Because if you cast something properly, at the beginning, it's 90% of the work is done. And if there is a mistake, the editor can hopefully fix. I've seen stories, even my own stories, that have, you know, whether it's these pieces in any of the shows I did, I thought, oh, that crap is, and an editor can fix anything, they are God. So
unless it's on stage.
well, oh, there's been creative ways. That's when you have to depend on the other actors to pull up their socks. I had one play where one of the actors, there's a crucial point where they had to bring in this painting that had been wrapped up because it tells you a lot about, moves the story forward. And I realized, and Act 2 comes on and she didn't show up. And I thought, oh, and then she jumped 3/4 as a second act. But I still got the performance got a standing ovation. So I realized in the end, it didn't matter. People, it killed me when I saw that one. But yeah, I mean,
it's amazing what actors, producers, the director, the stage managers know when someone has jumped a page or left out a key part of dialogue. But the actors and everyone is mortified, but the people in the audience, 9 times out of 10, they don't even realize something went wrong.
Not at all. Not at all. I mean, theater is totally different as far as getting the heart pumping and the adrenaline and everything. You don't have that in TV and film. Now everything's digital, so you're not even wasting film anymore. So you used to, I got to get this. We're running out of material or raw footage. But theater is its own monster, its own world, and a lot of people can't jump from one to another, but there are I admit any actor who can do all three and do them convincingly. I was watching The Gilded Age. Yeah, it's this new one on HBO. It's by Julian Fellows. He's the creator of Downton Abbey. And it's really good, but it takes place in the States, in New York, in the 1800s, late 1800s. One of my favorite places, the railroad barons and everything. I love that piece of history. Anyway, Audra McDonald's in it, and she's a magnificent Broadway singer, but she can also pull it off on film too. And I just love her, and I just admire anybody who can do that. A lot of Brits can do that, more so than North Americans, but it's happening now that you'll see it crossover.
Do you think theater is more down to earth than the TV and film industry? Because when I was working on these
down
shows,
to earth, what do you mean?
Like, okay, maybe they're more kind-hearted than like the industry is in Hollywood, if you know what I mean. No,
I mean the industry itself of theater.
The industry itself. Because me working on these shows, I've dealt with some situations where people were just like nasty to you, if you know what I mean.
There are assholes in all three, believe me. Okay. And there are some sweetest people in the world.
Yeah,
in all three. And I've met some stars on all. I've met stars on all three that over the years that some of the biggest jerks and some of the most warm heart. They don't believe their own story. That's what it. Or they believe their own press. So it happens and all. I don't think there is one.
What was it like to meet Goldie Hawn and Martin Short?
Oh, well, they had places up in Muskoka, and it was really funny because I had an art gallery in my home, and Martin Short's sister-in-law had a show at my gallery, and I didn't expect them to show up, and suddenly they all showed up. Martin had invited them all. So it was fun. It was great fun. It was brief. And I was up on the second floor showing them Kurt and Goldie. And I had this perfect script for them, but I had to bite my tongue and show them the art And I was there as the curator and the salesman that day, not as the playwright. And I just thought, and now sometimes I regret it, pulling out a script and here, read this. And but I didn't, because I just didn't.
And what was with the picture of you and Shannon Tweed? Was that when you were modeling?
Oh my God, that was
on your website.
I got one with Shannon Tweed. She, Mrs. Jean Simmons, right? And it was back when I was modeling, and it was a wedding. We were a bride and groom, and it was for jewelry. It was just print. It was a print thing, right? Oh no, yeah. So there she was, and I realized it years later, and I thought, oh my God. And I watched her. I have a picture of Nia Vardalos in my box office when I was producing one of my shows back when, and she was a riot. And when 10 years later or whatever it was, my big fat Greek wedding comes out, and I go, why do I know that girl? But she had lost weight, and she was, but underneath I could hear Nia, her enthusiasm. She always had a certain enthusiasm. It's like Catherine O'Hara. Catherine, when I meet her today, she still giggles. She is the sweetest person. She is like really very down to earth. So, I don't think people change. I think they're going to be monsters. They're going to be monsters as kids.
One thing I wanted to ask you is because in February 2020, before all this stuff, before the world vastly changed, I took a vacation for a week to Toronto. Explain to me why I should have gone to a smaller part of Ontario than Toronto. No offense to the city of Toronto.
Well, Toronto.
What would be the advantage of going?
Well, the advantage of going to Toronto or going elsewhere. Well,
yeah.
Again, it's like looking at, like, the province of Ontario has as much diversity as probably the state of California, or as far as of actually the geography of it. And I mean, Toronto, I grew up there. It's changed. It's crowded. It's got all the big city problems. When I was a kid, we could go from my house in the suburbs to downtown in 20 minutes. Last time I was there, it took me an hour and a half. I said, that's it. So I avoid it, and again, because of the internet, I don't have to travel anywhere anymore. Scripts get sent out, auditions get done you can do it from here. I am in a tiny little fishing village in Nova Scotia, and I'm getting more of a reaction than I ever had. So, it's busy. It's a busy time, and I love, I love the real estate part of it now, because it fills in the gaps in between while I'm writing and promoting and talking with people, and I can stop it when I need to and come back to it. But 98% of my clients are from out of province. I've got Americans coming up here. Most of them are from Ontario, Quebec, and BC. And it's because it's people selling off their properties there and coming up here. The cost of living's a little bit more, but it's you can buy your real estate cheaper, or you could. In 2 years, I've seen it go up and up and up, and there's not a lot of product that it used to be, but it's a whole different way of life. I don't know. I mean, my 95-year-old mom keeps calling. So are you tired of that yet? Are you ready for your next? Because I've changed my mind in my life so many times, and I lived everywhere. And I said, no, I'm staying here. I'll always keep this place, whether or not it becomes my year-round place. But I love it. I love it. I get to go. I pick oysters off my. And all I think of, what I have to pay for an oyster in the city? I can get a dozen of them right off my shoreline here. So
you may just be getting some phone calls to, retaining your service as an agent, because you are so right. I know 3 people in my little area who have
Right.
moved down east, 1 to New Brunswick and 2 to Nova Scotia. For all the reasons you say, people want to get away from Ontario, away from the buildup.
Here, I'm going to show you something. This is my, where are they? Oh, yeah, there. Here's one. My business card is so funny. People look at it. So you get this side, which shows you my real estate side, okay?
Yeah.
But then they flip it over and you get this.
Oh, lift higher.
Oh, there we
Higher
go. Oh, there we go.
Oh,
Oh, there it is. Oh, there it is.
yeah.
So
Oh,
it's,
very good.
it's
Dual
is it
purpose.
backwards to you?
No, you can
it's
see it.
good, but you have to hold it still because of your blue
Oh.
screen and behind
Oh,
you.
I see. There we go. Yeah.
Nice.
So yeah, so one side's a producer and my writing stuff, and the other side is the real estate. And it's fun because it provokes conversation with people, and I think it's part of the sales job. You know, people want to know you have a life, you know. And I mean, the real estate part to me is what made it easy for me is because I was dealing in real estate there, and I'm mostly rural here. And I haven't really sold. I might be selling a condo in Halifax, but most of it's been out in its farm or its waterfront. And I've dealt with this all my life, so I know all about septics and wells and setbacks from the shoreline and things that city people don't know.
You're the cottage weekend guy.
Yeah, the cottage.
Exactly.
That's funny that you people that I'll get. You're the cottage guy. No. And I still do. Like, I mean, my neighbor, I moved across the street and she knew me from television. And I thought I was in the middle of nowhere. I said, but that was years ago. Anyways, she, and I get clients who will remember me, especially if they come from Ontario. But so I get you're the cottage guy. I said, no, I'm the weekend guy. I was the guy on Cottage Life.
Yeah.
But it's fun.
Well, I really appreciate you coming on, Vince.
Well, it's been fun to reminisce.
Well, and this is exactly what these podcasts are about. And it shows just how very talented you are, Vince. You know, you've had so many opportunities.
I think the opportunities there in front of you. And, you know, I'm not a young chicken, and and I'm probably will never stop. I'll never retire. And like I said, I mean, I see this as the new phase, the new passage in my life that I'm entering, and it's fun. It's a lot of fun. And I think because I love it, I love what I'm doing, that's why I keep on going. So.
Well, thanks so much for coming on, Gordon. It was great. Love co-hosting with you. Looking forward to a lot more of these.
Thank you, Mark.